Hello everyone. Listen, this is Hamza Zawali, your career coach, and today we're going to be talking about salary negotiation, the surprising mindset of those who earn more. Thank you so much for participating in this free course. We are live on Facebook. Now, I don't have Facebook in front of me now, but I will be checking all of your comments before the end of this course. So, if you ask any questions or anything, I will go through all of the questions and I will obviously, give you some answers. So please don't worry. So feel free to ask any question you want, but this is the first course of a series of 2 courses, okay, about salary negotiation. Now, this is in preparation to my seminar. It's going to be a full day seminar. I'll tell you more about it soon, but for now, this is just the first course. And this is really one of the most important courses because it starts in here. It starts in here. Oftentimes, what my clients, I'm a career coach, as you guys know, and oftentimes when my clients want to negotiate their salary, whether they are already at work and this is just an internal renegotiation, or in a job interview, oftentimes it's their mindset that I try to change in order for them to win. And this is where I want to start with you as well. Okay, so there you go. Once again, please do participate. Please do feel free to ask any questions. And I will take time to answer to each one of them at the end of this course. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. Now, we talked about, I think success is really about mindset. It really is about how people are wired, inside. You see, oftentimes the way you ask questions is directly connected to the way you think, to the mindset. And the way you ask questions has the greatest amount of influence on the response. Okay, you will see that, in fact, questions reflect the intelligence of a person. So essentially what you want to start thinking is, hang on a minute, there's no way for me to acquire any methods, scripts, or templates if my mindset is not prepared for this. Okay, so there is a mindset for those who don't negotiate or negotiate badly, and there's a mindset for those who always seem to earn much more than everyone else and seem to progress faster than anyone else. I want to share this mindset to you because this is not something that you're born with. This is something you can acquire. And hopefully at the end of this course, especially if you rewatch it in your spare time, you will have, some elements to really shift your mindset. Okay. So in my experience, now this is not statistics that I've found or those studies that have been conducted. Okay. In my experience, 99%. Now, you have to know, what's my experience? 17 years of experience in the recruitment sector. I've recruited, across continents in different countries. And in my experience, even as a career coach, 99% of people that, try to, have an opportunity to negotiate, they either don't negotiate. Okay, so you have a job offer and you're like, oh, it's fine, it's good enough, it's perfect, I don't have a job now, and they don't negotiate, or they negotiate very, very badly. I've seen this as an employer, I've seen this as a recruiter, I've seen this on and on and on and on. And this is for me one of the, the topic, the career topic, the most neglected ever. And yet this is one of the career topics that could make people the most amount of money, that could, provide people a much better livelihood, much more comfort, much more savings, etc., etc. So this is why I'm tackling this. This is actually why I've decided to conduct a seminar, a full day seminar. I'll tell you more about it soon, but a full day seminar only to get those participants to actually be master negotiators and start earning more throughout the rest of their career. Okay, in my experience, 99% either don't negotiate or they negotiate extremely badly. Okay, so there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is that people are afraid. If you're on a job interview, you spend your time throughout the recruitment process, the interview process, you spend your time building a relationship. You really want a strong relationship, make a good impression, and then suddenly comes the topic of salary, and you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to destroy the bit of relationship that I've built, and I'm going to lose the job. I'm going to make a bad impression. So of course you're afraid. You're afraid also when internally you want to earn more, but you feel like everyone else is earning the same as you, and you don't feel like you have enough baggage, enough performance, enough track record to actually ask for more. So oftentimes it's just that people are afraid, and also for those who are not afraid, oftentimes they just don't know how to ask, or they ask extremely, in such a clumsy manner that it's unbelievable. I remember as an employer, I've had people ask me, hey Hamza, I heard that you pay Jonathan much more than me. I have a master's degree and he has a bachelor's degree. Oh yeah, sure. It doesn't make sense at all. And hopefully I will share with you the mindset of employers and how they think, so that you can really speak the same language. So this is really about it. But essentially, either people are afraid or people just don't know how to do it, and they are extremely clumsy, and they actually create some tension, and they create a negative impression actually when they try and do it the wrong way. So that's why we have to do it the right way. Okay, we have to do it the right way. I want to say something about fear. What is fear? If I ask you what is fear, please feel free to give me a definition, by the way. But if I ask you to sort of give me a definition of fear, you would probably say something like, well, fear, when you're afraid, like you feel your heart bouncing and your stomach, and well, that's the physical effect of fear. But what is fear? Oh, fear is an emotion. Yes, that's fine. But how does it, how do you create it? How do you create it? This is really, really important. So fear is essentially a future imaginary scenario. So it's a scenario that doesn't exist, that never existed, that we're just going to create from our mind, just purely from our imagination. So when you're afraid that the relationship is going to go bad if you try and negotiate, when you're afraid that you're going to get a rejection if you try and negotiate, this is just fear. But fear, remember, is a future imaginary scenario. It doesn't exist. You just made that up. It's not true. Meanwhile, the other person is completely fine. So, and maybe you're actually, not going to earn more purely because you're paralyzed by fear. But remember, fear is not real. Fear is not real. We invent these fears. We constantly invent fears, okay? So if you don't go against our minds sometimes, then you'll find yourself not moving enough, not progressing fast enough financially, okay? So that's what I wanted to say. Now, in regards to, the other mindset that I want to share with you is essentially the fact that there's really employees and entrepreneurial mindsets. I'm not saying that if you are currently at a job, you are an employee. I'm saying the mindset that you have determines the results that you have, okay? Determines the results that you have. You see, employees are here to do a job. They have a defined job on their job description, and they have a manager that tells them what to do and sort of monitor them and assesses them. And this is a mindset where you get paid for what you're paid for, and that's pretty much it, okay? But when you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you don't think the same way. You think that your career is actually selling your services. You're actually selling your services to a company. You are a company by yourself, because that's what the career is. You see, an employer would pay you monthly for the services that you would render. And these services are either consulting services, accounting services, depending on your job, okay? This is your expertise. But you are working for yourself. The moment you believe that you're working for an employer and that the employer is not actually just a client. Remember, an employer, your manager, is just a client. There are tons of clients out there, and your career will go through client after client. So I want you to start thinking as an entrepreneur your career is actually the services rendered by your company, and your company being you as the owner of your expertise. Okay, so essentially, what's the purpose of an entrepreneur? What's the purpose of a company? Well, the purpose of a company is to grow its profits, is to earn more and more. Okay, and so that way you have to start thinking like an entrepreneur, because guess what? You're working for another entrepreneur, and you see the communication between two entrepreneurs is really usually the same language. But the communication between an employee and an entrepreneur, for example, an employee and an employer, is usually things like what I said earlier. Oh, Hamza, I have a bachelor's degree and I have a PhD, I should be paid more. That's employee mindset. This sense that, well, if I have a certain degree, certain level of experience, the entrepreneur doesn't think like that. The entrepreneur thinks in terms of value. If you're able to create more value than other people, he would be more inclined to give you more money, because that's a better return on investment for him, and he would want to keep you more than others are providing less value. So you see, entrepreneurship is really about creating value for others. That's the definition of entrepreneurship, nothing less, nothing more. But when you create value for others, you're actually creating value for yourself, because you're earning more money. Okay, the more people you help, and obviously the more or the bigger the value, the more you earn. Okay, so that's essentially what I want you to think about. Now, you see, the last thing I will tell you, and we will talk about it in the next course, is that employees get told, oh, there's no budget at the moment. They say, oh, okay. They say, oh, at the end of the year, we will be reviewing salaries, not now. They say, oh, okay. And they just say, okay. But entrepreneurs know that these are just things that employers say to their employees. Okay, the moment you see your career as an entrepreneur, and you say to yourself, hang on, my client, not my employer, is just one of the many clients I can work with. Okay, I'm actually free. The market is gigantic. A lot of people want my services, and my job is to find the best clients, is to spend the next few years in my career earning the most amount of money so that I can do something else, so that I can retire or whatever. Okay, so you see, the way I think about my career is very, very different than, oh, I just want to work for a multinational, a great company that values employees. Yeah, that's fine. All of this is okay, but it is not what's going to make you happy. Work for yourself. That's the difference between an entrepreneur and an employee. And I have a course, by the way. If you look at the video section, you will see a full course about the difference and how people with an entrepreneurial mindset succeed much more than people with an employee mindset. Please have a look at the course. But now, for now, I just want to tell you, there is also, you see, as an entrepreneur, you know that there is a recipe for literally everything. Literally everything. And this is so powerful, because, I want to, I want to lose weight. There's a recipe. I want to, I want to be, I want to invest my money and start earning money from my investment. There is a recipe. I want to set up a company. There is a recipe. I want to progress in my career. There is a recipe. I want to search for a job. There is a recipe. I want to write a CV. There is a recipe. There is a recipe for everything. And you see, entrepreneurs know that in order for them to succeed, they need to find the formula. In order to cook something, there is a recipe. There's always a recipe, a formula, a process. Okay? And this is what you want to tune in. You want to tune into the fact that, hang on, if I'm not earning enough, I'm not using the right recipe. I need to change the ingredients being the questions, the scripts, the words that are being said. I need to change my approach. I need to change my method. That's the recipe. There is a recipe for everything you want in life. Entrepreneurial mindset. Please think about it. Okay? There is no reason why someone else with a similar level of experience earns more. How many times have you seen people younger than you, but much more comfortable than you in your job sector? Okay, working for a specific company or at the managerial level where you are not, etc., etc. They're not doing the right things. They're not doing the same thing than you. And when we realize this, we think, hang on a minute, this means that I can change. This means that I can actually use a different method, a different approach. And that's what I want you to start thinking. Remember, this course is only about mindset. There is a recipe for everything. You're working for yourself. So it's not for your it's not for your employer to look after you. It's for you to look after yourself. It's for you to think like an employer so that you really speak the same language. Okay? That's very, very important. And remember, if you're not able to earn more, if you're not able to progress fast enough in terms of salary, it's the recipe. Now, I'm also going to have to tell you about the victim and creator mindset, because although I do talk about this very often, I have to tell you this. The victim mindset is someone that is actually always complaining that he's not earning, that his employer is not great. He's always complaining that it's his environment's fault, his parents' fault, he doesn't have enough degree, it's my nationality, that's why I'm not earning enough, it's my skin color, it's my whatever, okay, my religion, whatever, okay, the people are racist, that's why I'm not paid as much, etc., etc. You see, the employer, who is an entrepreneur, doesn't care about all of these things. Let me tell you this one more time. The employer, the entrepreneur, doesn't care. Most of them really don't care, period. I'm an employer. All I want is, people to provide value for my company. That's all. This is all I want, okay? And so you have people that are going to find themselves excuses. Oh, it's because I'm Indian. Oh, it's because I'm this. It's because I'm that. It's because... And you have people that are going to stop finding themselves excuses and find solutions. They have a creator mindset. They create solutions. You see, I have a very good friend of mine. He only has his A level. That's all. But boy, he's successful. Boy, he's successful. Only with an A level. You see, he didn't stop at, well, I don't have the degrees, I can't. He was the recruitment manager of a very, very, very large company here in Dubai. Semi-government, by the way. They were asking stringent, requirements about who can join. But he went there and proved them that he would do a better job than anyone else. And he got the job. He set up his company with no degree again, and he sold his company. Boy, he's successful. So you've got victim mindset and creator mindset. The thing with victim mindsets is that you can't change what you're complaining about. You can't change your employer, you can't change your nationality, you can't change the fact that, whatever you're complaining about, yes, it makes you feel good because it doesn't bring the fault on you. And it makes you feel like, well, it's not my fault, it's my employer that's a racist. Oh, it's not my fault, it's just because I have this or that. Yes, I'm fine, and you're comfortable with that, and it helps to justify. But the more courageous approach is to actually say, no, hang on a minute. It's not everyone that is in my situation that earns my money. You've got people that earns much more, have bigger salaries. What are they doing different? Now you're talking about recipe. Now you're trying to find recipes. It's much harder, because it really completely challenges you, okay? So now, in regards to other things, there is a recipe for everything, but remember, most people, they prefer to improvise. They just prefer to improvise. So, we live in a world where no one teaches you to do a CV. No one teaches you to succeed in your career. No one teaches you to negotiate a salary. No one. But at the same time, you do not educate yourself. Now, I'm not talking about you that's watching the video, because this course, obviously, because you're different. You decided to take control. You're one of the very, very few. The 1%, I told you 99% are clumsy. You're the 1% that's about to be not clumsy at all. I'm not talking about you, okay? But I'm talking about the masses. The masses just improvise their way. Hi, listen, I've been here for 1 year, and I haven't had a salary raise, and the thing is, these HR people, line managers, are very well trained. They are so well trained. They are like wolves, and the masses are like sheeps. And they say, "Ah, well, I know you've been doing a good work indeed, but the budget is restricted at the moment, and we can't do much. But I promise you, the moment there is something going on and we can have more budget, I'll get back to you." "Okay, boss." And they go away. And the boss says, "Oh, I can't believe this trick works," all the time. Not for you, not for anymore. Most people prefer to improvise. You see, this person doesn't have a clue that he's just been served one of the most common excuses of employers. And in the next course, I will give you the 5 most common excuses of employers that you've got to actually destroy in order to succeed. Okay? So that's in the next course. But remember, most people prefer to improvise their career. Most people prefer to improvise. They're complaining about not earning enough, that they want to do other things with their money, have projects, etc., etc. But most people prefer to improvise. They just go to their employer, their husband, their wife tells them, "Hey, why don't you say this? Why don't you ask this? Why don't you tell him this and tell him that?" And sometimes I have clients that say, "Well, I tried to negotiate by myself, but it didn't end well. We argued, and I told him, look, I'm working really hard, and you're not seeing this, and I don't feel recognized." And the employer would say, "Oh, I recognize you, but maybe you're working hard, but look at your results." Where is this going? Okay, so you see how this is improvised and how the outcome is not under control. You see, when you're using a recipe, what happens is that most of the time what dish is going to be tasting, what the dish is going to taste, what the dish is going to look like, etc., etc. But when you don't use a recipe, you just improvise. And you need luck. So essentially, that's really the mindset. So remember, create a mindset. Entrepreneur, there is a formula for everything. We don't want to improvise. If we're not earning enough, hey, we're just going to take it on us, our responsibility. We're going to create a solution. There is a formula. We're not going to improvise. Now, our job is only to find the formula, okay? So here's a key principle, guys. Now, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, here's a key principle. You're either on a negotiation phase, so you already spoke to, you're about to speak to, you're waiting for an answer, you're waiting for a second discussion, second negotiation round of negotiation, or you're preparing for one. You're preparing for one, but if you are not in any of these 2 phases, you have an employee mindset. And plus, you're missing out on a lot of money. Remember, if you're working for yourself as a company, your job is to create value for yourself and your company. If you are a company, what matters is not how much you earn even, is the profit you're generating. There's no point, for example, earning a lot of money, but living it large and not having any savings left. The savings are the profit, okay? The turnover is not the ultimate goal, okay? The turnover is not the ultimate goal. The profit, the savings are the ultimate goal. So essentially, there's different ways to improve profit, okay? The one way is to increase the input, okay? Increase the salary. Obviously, if your cost base, your livelihood remains the same, then profit increases. Another way is to get another job, okay? Then obviously you increase again the input. Another way is to reduce the cost, then you increase the profit. But remember, if you focus only on increasing income, then you must be either within the negotiation phase or preparing for one. If you think about this, then you're starting to realize, hang on, am I really preparing for one now? How? What recipe? Where am I in the recipe? And let me give you a few things, guys. There's many opportunities where you can negotiate. I'm going to give you a few examples. The first one is at each job interview. Now, I'm not saying the first stage interviews. I'm saying when there is a job offer, when there is an employment offer that is made to you, whether verbal or written, this is a crazy, amazing, unmissable opportunity to negotiate your salary. You can't miss it. This is the easiest way to earn money in just 5 minutes. 2 minutes, 2 minutes of discussion, you could get yourself 5-10% more, 15-20% more. Just 2 to 5 minutes of discussion. I mean, these 2 to 5 minutes of discussion are so valuable. Imagine the return on investment for just 5 minutes of your time. If you know how to conduct that. There's always a recipe, remember. So that's essentially it. One extra opportunity is when you complete 1 year. When you complete 1 year in a job, remember that, you see, my mindset as an employer is going to tell you, hey, when you started, there was a starting salary. And that was based on the fact that you did not have any training, that you did not, provide any value yet, etc., etc. But after 1 year, guess what? The situation is different. You have an opportunity to renegotiate that. If you know how to bring that up, if you know how to present this, it's really not whether you're going to make it or not. The opportunity here is if you can understand how to bring this up in such a way that it's completely logical, okay? So another opportunity is when you're going through a period of top performance. You just got yourself a lot of money, good client, or a lot of praises. You just earned a big project. You just finished a huge project, or whatever it is. Then this is where you're going to have a very favorable perception, that you can use to your advantage. Okay, so see, there is a lot of opportunities to actually renegotiate your salary. A final one I'll give you is when you're getting more responsibility. We are often getting more responsibility, whether officially or unofficially. Sometimes a manager will tell you, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you speak to him and see if you can help him and train him? He's really weak on this and you're really strong. Now, this is not a formal, more responsibility, higher position, situation, but it is more responsibility. And if you do this well, if you're being successful at this, if you train the person and this person is doing extremely well, is it autonomous, then you would have provided an extra value than the one that you have been paid for so far. So this is also an opportunity to earn more money. This is also, if you know how to bring that up in a nice way, every single negotiation has got to be a win-win. It is not conflictual. My mindset. Remember, you're either on a negotiation phase or preparing for one. So that's very, very important. Okay. The better you do at job interviews, the more likelihood you can win the negotiation. You can sort of get a higher amount in the employment offer that's going to be made to you, etc., etc. Okay. So let's look at the graph here, and I want to remind you, this is just an example, by the way, but remember that the purpose of a job search is to generate choice, not to find a job. Oftentimes, we look for a job, and that's so wrong. We should be looking for several jobs and choose which one. You see, oftentimes we are so desperate to start a new job because the job search is so uncomfortable that we forget the point that actually, if I have the right recipe, if I have the right formula, I should get the choice. And of course, my choice of employer, of my client, who I'm going to serve as an entrepreneur myself, is extremely important. I want to choose a client that has the best return on investment, that could make me grow faster, that has the best succession plan for me, that the best career growth path for me, because it means more money for me. Okay, so remember this element when you look at these graphs. Okay, so in the bottom you will see that let's just say it starts with your first job. Okay, and each little gradient here is 6 months. Okay, so second job is after 1 year. A year and a half later, you have a third job, and 2 years later, you have a fourth job. This is just, a scenario, okay? I'm not saying you should or should not, but this is something that is not out of the ordinary either, okay? So it's just for you to understand. Now, I have written also the R plus or P, okay? R plus or P. R plus is, so basically when you get more responsibility. R plus, more responsibilities, and you are successful, okay, you're performing, that's the P, you have performance, okay. So remember, that's what I explained to you in the previous slide, obviously. You have these opportunities, okay, throughout any career, any job, okay. So we're going to choose our employer. We're going to choose our employer, the ones that pay better, the ones where there's a better career growth for us in terms of opportunity. And also we're going to now be either in a situation of negotiating. We are negotiating at the moment, or we're going to be in a negotiation of preparing for negotiation. The vast majority of employees would be like this, okay? So they would have basically this almost linear growth that is very similar to the masses. Most people would go through more or less this, okay? The angle would vary slightly, but most people would do this. So they would clumsily negotiate sometimes, they would sort of get gradually more responsibilities, etc. Performance reviews, that would put them within 5 years, that would put them in this situation, okay? Now, what I would like to say to you is, suppose that each of these employees is now going to take every single opportunity. Remember, you're either on negotiating or preparing for a negotiation, okay? And you are going to prepare for every single negotiation because you know those milestones, okay? Now you know those milestones, okay? So imagine after 6 months, this is your first job, you didn't have any job before. And imagine after 6 months, you say, hey, I just completed my probation period. You usually have a performance review. Boom, you negotiate. You say, well, there's a difference between the one you obviously hired and the one I am now. I'm now much more, I'll provide much more return on investment. Now, you're going to keep on doing that. The second job now, in the interview, you're going to negotiate as well. Okay, you're going to negotiate. If you get the job offer, trust me, it's never the last final, offer that they will make you. They can't do that. They can't do that. There's always a bracket, okay? But they will offer you the job and they will pretend that this is it. This is it. This is policy. This is whatever they're going to say to you. But you're going to know better. You're going to know a recipe and you're going to be able to negotiate this, okay? So let's carry on. This employee now is also progressing. He's getting more responsibility. He's going through a peak of performance, whatever it is, and he's constantly asking for more. He's constantly asking for more. So here, for example, if he's, he got his new job after 6 months, maybe he's negotiated during the job interview of his second job. He said, okay, listen, I'm going to take this, that extra that he got, but honestly, can we review it after 6 months? After 6 months, he performs fantastically. Boom. He said, remember, at the job interview, we negotiated a little bit. I wasn't quite happy. And you said we would be reviewing. Now, look at my performance. Bang. Okay. Do you see what I mean? Preparing for a negotiation. That's the mindset. Now, after the completion of 1 year in the second job, this is the second year now, he's going to be saying, look, I've completed 1 year, I'm providing much more value. So for example, you got me much more, responsibilities than when I joined, and I'm now doing a much bigger role because I'm also training this, and I'm also in charge of this, and I have also over exceeded my targets and objectives, etc., etc. So it carries on and on and on and on. And you see the difference here is that the negotiator is someone that is going to not see himself as, well, I'm just going to follow what everyone's going to set for me, but he's going to actually take every single opportunity to negotiate. Remember, the purpose of a job search is to have choice. So it's not about joining the first company that comes and offers you a job. It's to actually have choice. I remember when I started my career in recruitment, I had choice between 2 or 3 employers. That was great. Guess which one I took? The one that paid me more. Of course. And I didn't regret it because they immediately gave me a sign that they had more money, that they had more budget, and I, evolved much faster, okay? So that's essentially what you want to think about, okay? So Listen, look at the difference, for example, at the second job. The second job between, the masses and the negotiator is not a big deal, right? It's just a tiny little difference. And by the way, look at the negotiator. He doesn't start at zero here. It doesn't start where most job seekers start. He negotiates also his first job. That's why he starts a little bit higher, okay? But look, the difference is not much here. But as the time goes, that exponential feeling increases and increases. And this is where I want you to be. I want you to stop thinking about market rate, about what most people earn. I will challenge you. You will always find someone in your, in your surroundings, in your circle, that earns much more than you for a similar level of expertise, for a similar level of experience. Of course, my question to you is, what did they do different? What did they say different? How did they behave so that you can be like this? You can be even better like this, because most of these people have done it without knowing how. And sometimes there's a bit of luck, there's a bit of this, etc. But what if you know the recipe? That's what I want to tell you. Okay? What I want everyone to become is a negotiator. You're either negotiating or preparing for one. That's your career. Why is it? Well, you know what? Because the negotiator has a plan. The negotiator has a plan. You see, like when you have a company, you have a 5-year plan. So imagine if you have a 5-year plan and you say, well, my plan is to put enough money on the side to do something else. Or maybe my plan is to enjoy life, spend more time with my loved ones. Or maybe, hey, I just want to make sure I earn more, invest my money so that I can earn between 5 and 10%, on a return on investment per year. Now, if you do 5 to 10% per year and you put this back into the sort of initial investment, constantly put this back, you can almost double your money after 10 years. What is 10 years? Most of us have already passed 10 years of career. 10 years goes in a fly. But if you can double your investment, initial investment, I mean, this is called exponential, the most powerful force in the world. Exponential is really powerful. So a lot of people think like this. Perhaps you want to travel more, eat better, laugh more. Perhaps you want to retire early. Perhaps you want to say, look, this job is extremely difficult, is lucrative, but extremely difficult. I don't plan on doing it more than 5-10 years. Maybe. But what most people do, you see, the mindset, the collective mindset, the conventional wisdom says, well, you're supposed to work until 55, 60. They teach you that at school. Everyone says that. And of course, our mindset makes our expectation to that level too. No one is actually thinking, no, why? I'm a company. I sell my services. And you see, there are companies that are performing better than others. I don't have to abide by, this rule. It would be silly, for example, for me to say to you, well, if you have a company, you can expect that you will earn enough money after only 30 years. No, you would say no. There are companies that earn tons of money after 2 years. And there are companies that never earn enough money after 30 years. It doesn't make sense. And that's why I want to tell you about mindset. It's really, it's flawed from the start when we don't think the right way, if that makes sense. And of course, earning more also means that you can help other people, whether you're family members or your kids' school or whatever, or even charity. Build hospitals, send money for medical equipment, food, help the needy. In fact, the more you acquire this negotiation skill, the more you're going to be able to actually provide more and more value to the world. Not just to a client, an employer, but also to the world. And this is powerful, really is powerful, okay? The purpose, now here's a shocker, the purpose of a negotiation is not to earn more. It's not to earn more. The purpose of a negotiation, I know what you're saying now. Right now, you probably say, what is he saying? But the guy is high. No, I'm not high, I promise you. I actually, let me explain this to you. You see, there's a difference between being result-driven and process-driven. The moment you want to earn more, you set your level of expectation, for example, to a figure, a specific figure. You either win or lose. You either are disappointed or happy. And that's not great. The moment you expect to earn more, you want to earn more, you add a bit of tension in the conversation. And that's not in your favor. That's not in your favor. You see, there's a difference between someone, let's say, for example, if I want to sell you something. Okay, let's just say if I want to sell you something, I have two ways to do it. I can say, hey, I've got this fantastic product and blah, 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 blah. Boom. Do you want it? Yes, no. Okay. So you would find an excuse usually like, don't have a budget. The economy is a little bit difficult. That's what employers say. And you know, you would not buy my product perhaps. Or I can try and know what's your budget first. Hey, I would say, hey, can I ask you a question? How much do you have on you right now? Why? Just a quick question. How much? 100 dirhams? Perfect. Let me tell you why. I need 80 dirhams. Now, it's much harder for you to actually say no to me because you just proven that you can do it. You see, the number one objection of employers can be regrouped in one big objection, which is I can't do it. But when you make sure the employer says and proves he can do it, there's less room. So your number one purpose for a negotiator is not to earn more, to sell what you want, to convince the employer, is to actually find out if it's possible to get a salary negotiation. That's all. If it's possible to sell your product. That's all. If it's not possible, if the employer says, well, nothing, to be honest, I have nothing. Unfortunately, the CEO took away all of our budget. Then you know there's no salary negotiation possible. And this is very, very important. You see, I always say to my clients, when they get frustrated before a face-to-face with their manager, when it comes to the negotiation, I always say to my clients, what's the purpose of a negotiation? Is to find out if it's possible or not to actually have more. That's it. And because I said this, then the structure, the recipe is different from trying to sell your product at all costs. Okay, this is very, very different, very, very different. So your goal before negotiation influences the negotiation itself. If your goal, if you have a specific figure in mind, you know, you are creating a win-lose situation and you make the employer defensive. You also impact the relationship between you and your boss. And finally, you have a greater likelihood of leaving money on the table, a greater likelihood, because maybe you get your figure, maybe you get, but what makes you say that you couldn't get more? And a lot of people, they negotiate, but they actually leave money on the table because they could have gotten more. And the employer goes, whew, thank God she didn't ask more. We could have given her more. No, I spent it like this. We will give her more if she does well. Well, that's so patronizing, isn't it? But hopefully you won't be in a situation if you know the recipe, okay? So without specific figure in mind. So let's say you just go there without trying to say, oh, I want at least 5K more or whatever more, okay? You just say that. So here you remove the notion of losing or winning. And this is very important. You're just here to consult on what's possible. Now, there's a way to do it. Of course, there's a way to do it, okay? And, you know, it could be done openly, without emotions. The employer doesn't need to be defensive here because, you know what? You're not trying to get something specific from him. You just see what's possible. You're trying to set a win-win situation, okay? And the employer, when you're trying to do that, he can actually suggest solutions instead of defending the status quo. Make sense? So the moment you say, I want at least more, you find yourself in a bit of a situation where the employer is going to say, well, it's either yes or no. I'm going to try and delay things. And this is defense mechanism. So essentially, the purpose of a negotiation is truly not to earn more. The purpose of a negotiation is to see if you are with the right employer or not. That's all. When you get this in your mind, suddenly the conversations smooth up. You see, this is the mindset of master negotiator. They're always trying to find out if there's room for growth financially as well, okay? And the only way to find out if a negotiation is possible is actually to negotiate. There's no other way. Now, remember, I told you, most people don't negotiate because of fear or they're clumsy. Now, my job is to, during the seminar, one of the things that we're going to do, whether you attend or not, I hope you will attend, but if you don't attend, just so you know, one of the things that we are going to do in the seminar is to make sure that you're no longer afraid, because there is a recipe for that too, and that you're not clumsy. You are very meticulous about what to say and how you control the conversation. This is how you're going to get the employer relaxed, but yet under tension. You're going to create some sort of tension, but you will be under control in a nice, smooth way. Once you learn this, how much money do you think you can generate in the next 5 years with all these opportunities? All of these opportunities in the next 5 years. In the next 2 years, how much money? Just say a number. Say a number. How much? Once you know how to not be afraid and to have the correct, perfect recipe to overcome any objection, to actually present your case in such a light that it's impossible for the employer to not say no. And that's really what I want to teach you. Essentially, you've got to take risk. If you don't take a risk here and actually jump into a negotiation, chances are you're not going to get the reward. The bigger risk you take and the more rewards. What's the worst that can happen? In a correctly done negotiation, the worst that can happen is just no. It's just the status quo. It's just the unchanged situation of yours. That's it. Nothing happens in the worst case scenario. In other words, you have nothing to lose when the negotiation is done well. When the negotiation is not done well, you could lose your job, you could lose a relationship, a trust, there's a few things that you can lose, yes. And essentially, I'm just gonna give you, quote by Richard Branson. Richard Branson, he says, "It is only by being bold that you get anywhere." Mindset. If you are a risk taker, then the art is to protect the downside. If you are a risk taker, then the art is to protect the downside. Remember, you are either on a negotiation phase or preparing for one. Let me give you one final tip before I read actually the comments, and feel free to ask any questions, by the way, if you have some. Let me give you one more tip. In order to prepare for one of the key questions that you want to ask, for example, there's quite a few, but one of the key questions you want to ask is, hey, boss, so let's say his name is John. Hey, John, been working with you for XYZ. I was just wondering, what would it take for me to become or to earn? What would it take for me to is powerful, because if the employer says, remember, the purpose of a negotiation is not to get more, is to find out if you're on with the right employer. If the employer says, well, you have to at least stay 5 years in this job, then you're with the wrong employer, period. Negotiation done. Now you know you need to look for a job. But if he says, well, you need to be able to blah, 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 blah. Okay, so if I'm able to do blah, 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 blah in the next 6 months, would you be happy for us to sit down? Preparing for a negotiation. And this is how negotiators consistently grow. The mindset is different. Okay? They work for themselves. And you see, what the employer says is, well, in order for me to pay you that, you need to provide that much value. That's what the employer says. And because you're working for, you know, yourself and you are a company, you understand that the more value you bring, the more you get paid. Now you just need to align those expectations. But you see how you're preparing for a negotiation. That's just the final tip. I hope this was helpful. Listen, if it was helpful, please leave a comment, whether you have, you know, you're watching it now live, or if you're watching it after the live. Listen guys, please don't hesitate to just send a comment under this video, and I will reply, obviously, and please feel free. It would mean the world to me if you share this video as well, because we can touch more people. I really want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to understand the difference in terms of mindset. It begins here, and you've done something that 99% of people haven't done. 99% of people improvise. You decided to actually say, no, I'm just going to try and get something so that I don't no longer improvise. This is the first step. Please be there for the next course next week, where I will show you the 5 objections that every single employer will throw at you. If you destroy these objections, you will win. Okay, if you destroy these objections, you will win. So that's for the next course, hopefully, and a bonus as well. Okay, so keep this in mind, and don't hesitate to share, comment, and thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna let you go now. Thank you so much one more time, and I will see you on next week, hopefully. Yeah, take care. Bye bye.